So starting the test drive in this Chevy Bolt EV, pretty peppy, and it can get away from you because, well, not in a bad way, but the front tires love to spin just because it's a front wheel drive vehicle. So as you're turning the tires and you're giving it throttle at the same time, you can make a little noise there. So in the normal drive mode, it does a pretty good job at being efficient, just how the pedal feels and things of that nature. But in the sport mode, you get a very ruthless acceleration curve there. So I'm gonna put in the sport and kind of show you what I mean. And just watch the speedometer. So certainly getting up to speed from those lower speeds, you will feel the tires kind of pull away from you. As you get up higher in terms of your speed, the pull isn't as exciting, I guess, but where it counts from a stop, it'll get you going. Now I do like just how easy this is to drive, just where the shifter feels like a normal car, the steering feels like a normal car. Everything just makes sense. So if you're going from just a normal gas-powered vehicle and you get behind the wheel of a Bolt, it's not necessarily like getting behind the wheel of a Tesla. And I think part of that's just because GM made cars before they made electric cars, so they weren't necessarily trying to reinvent the wheel. But I mean, the ride quality is good. Specifically for an EV, it's very good. And again, just the overall driving dynamics are nice. Wind noise is not terrible. I can hear it. But honestly, the road noise is unnoticeable. As I'm getting on this off-ramp, it kind of gets loud, but that's to be expected. And I'm in the low mode, low gear, and that's kind of your regen drive mode there to maximize that regenerative braking. Now, part of the good thing about, I guess, the EV market going up, and then kind of slamming down is one of these is relatively inexpensive for what you get. Now, you want to make sure that you're able to get some sort of extended warranty or just know what it is when you're buying an EV, because the batteries can be expensive to replace nowadays, but I'm sure that'll change in the future. And just like this one has 19,000 miles, so the battery, I don't know the condition that it was necessarily kept in, because you kind of like to let them cycle every so often and discharge kind of close to zero, just so all the cells stay running, if you will. But I mean, this one still has a pretty good range left on it, I think. And especially if you want something that's very efficient, and again, something that you can get relatively inexpensive compared to how much it was new, this is a pretty good option. With EVs, what makes them so practical for me is electricity in Tennessee is much cheaper than it is in most other places, I think. And just where a lot of people don't want to go to electric vehicles, just for the stigma, I think, mostly. But then also just not being sure of the future, not being sure of the battery's necessary life. It just makes it easier for people like me who like EVs, who drive EVs, even a plug-in hybrid, I have one of those. It just makes it easier for me to find charging stations, less expensive for me to put electricity in my vehicle as opposed to gas. And I love just being at a red light and not being afraid to just accelerate with my pedal to the floor. You're not necessarily worrying like, oh, I might thrash my engine over time, or oh, this is burning a lot of gas, because you're like, whatever. So I like the Bolt, I like EVs, but it's just my preference, so I wouldn't want to push that on anybody. But definitely cheaper to operate than a typical gas-powered vehicle, except maybe a Prius, and that's just because of your upfront costs. But with all that being said, this will bring me to the end of my review of this 2017 Chevy Bolt EV in the LT trim level.